In this corner, the DC Multiverse Knightfall Batman, and in this corner, Batman from Hush. Last year, I compared 3 Jokers Batman against Rebirth to figure out which was the best black and gray Dark Knight. Today, I'm pitting these two together to see which one is the best blue and gray. Place your bets and don't move a muscle. This versus is gonna be special. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. Starting off with the packaging, and both figures come in window boxes. Looking at the back of Knightfall, and the artwork was taken from Batman 492. It's interesting because this artwork is in no way indicative of what we get in the box, and I'm fine with that. Don't get me wrong, I prefer a blue and gray Batman with longer ears, just maybe not 2 feet long. If anything, it just reminds me how much I want a Mad Hatter figure. There were a lot more villains to choose from at this time than just Bane and Catwoman. When are we going to get a basic comic Scarecrow? Or a comic Two-Face? How about Cornelius Stirk? Come on, McFarlane, where's my Cornelius Stirk figure? By contrast, Hush has some beautiful Jim Lee art that perfectly represents what's packed in the box. Even though I had more fun talking about Knightfall for packaging, this round goes to Hush. Moving on to presentation, and the top of his scalp, Knightfall stands at 7 inches, but to the tips of his ears, he stands at 7 1/4. Hush, however, towers over him, standing at just under 7 1/2. I love this figure, but the height has been one of my biggest issues with it. Just look at how much bigger he is than Superman. In that regard, one of the things about Knightfall I've been really excited about is seeing how well it scales with other figures. Obviously, we're going to take a much deeper dive into that during playability, but already I'm very encouraged. Just like with Hush, I love this head sculpt. He cuts a really good profile, and there's just enough detail in the jaw. Compare that to 3 Jokers, which always felt a bit overdone. One of the things I like most is that they both look like they could be the same man at different stages of life. I do like how broad and muscular this Batman is, but as a more late 80s, early 90s Batman, this is fine. The logo is sculpted perfectly and is perfectly vibrant, and I love how the only detailing on the body are little tugs of fabric. Compare that to the over-texturing of someone like, say, Kyle Rayner. Though in defense of Hush and all the figures that use this body, I can say the same thing. Knightfall has an era-appropriate capsule belt, whereas Hush has an era-appropriate pouch belt. On the one hand, I've always felt this seemed more practical, but if you ask me to picture Batman's utility belt, this is what comes to mind. I'm not saying one's better, it really just comes down to personal preference. I think it's just because that's what I was exposed to first. Also, keep this figure in mind because we're going to be coming back to it. Moving down to the gloves, and I have to give it to Knightfall for 3 reasons. 1, the Knightfall gloves are sculpted on and not just painted. 2, the wrist ball looks much more natural. And 3, I'm pretty sure this is the first time that McFarlane has correctly placed the fins on the back of the glove instead of jutting off the sides. Moving on down, and both have the signature boot scallops, but as I've droned on about ad infinitum, Hush is missing his iconic treads. It really cannot be understated just how much attention Jim Lee drew to them in the comic. Seriously, I feel like this is the 18th time I've talked about this, and I've never even shown this picture. It's a catch-22 though, because if they did give him the treads, that would have only made him taller. That said, I do have a couple of critiques of Knightfall as well. For one thing, I don't really like the cape. Don't get me wrong, all the folds have been beautifully sculpted. I just don't really like how it lilts to one side. My brain just really wants to try to straighten it out. Also, this is a petty gripe, but I really don't like this fold. It really draws attention to itself and looks like he's got his cape caught on something. The other thing I don't love is the color scheme. I like the blue. I just wish that the gray and the yellow were a bit darker. Something just a bit closer to Batman Year 2. Oddly enough, I wish that the gray on Hush was a bit lighter. I feel like something in between would be perfect. But hey, remember when I said we'd be coming back to our old friend Superpowers Batman? The gray is basically the same, which is funny because the blue matches Year 2. The point being, I may not like it to be this light, but it is at least accurate to something. Not only is Hush good reuse of the 3 Jokers body, I'd go so far as to say it improves on it. Even so, it is still largely reuse. As for Knightfall, it's a 100% new sculpt and fixes issues like the height and gloves. For presentation, this round goes to Knightfall. Moving on to posability, and just like 3 Jokers, Hush's head turns at a ball joint at the base of the neck, whereas Knightfall Nightfall has a traditional dumbbell at the base of the skull. Because of that, Hush is more hindered by the nape of the cape, so he can't really look up at all. To his credit though, he can look down way better than Nightfall. All things considered though, and both have a pretty decent amount of tilt, and of course all the way around. Moving down, Nightfall can raise his arm 90 degrees, Hush notably more so. Of course both have rotator cuffs that give some forward and back, Hush less so, but they do both have bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, and McFarlane wrist balls, with Nightfall being much better integrated into the sculpt. Moving to the middle, and both McFarlane figures have diaphragm joints and dumbbell waists. They can arch back this far, which is fairly comparable, and they can hunch forward this far, which is also comparable. Comparably bad. That said, both of them can tilt, Hush possibly a bit more so, and twist. Below the utility belt, and both have McFarlane style hips. Hush can kick 90 degrees and do a perfect split. Nightfall is just about 90 and can also do a perfect split. Fairly even twist in the hip. They also both have double knee, with Hush bending just a bit deeper, and they each have toe articulation, as well as McFarlane ankles that can swivel, hinge, and pivot. They have the same basic articulation, but this one has the better range. For posability, this round goes to Hush. Moving on to playability, and both of them come with trading cards. Spoiler alert, they say the exact same thing. This one just breaks it up a bit. Naturally, they both also come with figure stands. Hush Batman comes preloaded with accessory holding hands. That's so he can hold on to the two matching batarangs he comes with. Nightfall comes with one batarang, which is a bit smaller, but then again so is the figure. Unlike Hush though, he comes preloaded with fists, so he's ready to brawl. Fear not though, for he also comes with accessory holding hands, and can hold the batarang in either one. As for Hush, he also comes with a pair of fists, but with a couple of asterisks. For one thing, there's ribbing on the back, even though his regular hands don't have any. This is a holdover from Three Jokers Batman, but more importantly, the right hand has his kryptonite ring. This is so he can fight a Poison Ivy possessed Superman. It's a great accessory and I'm really happy that they included it, but it would have been nice if they included an unringed fist for when he wants to fight other people. As is, this Batman will be taking all of his swings as a southpaw. Important as Batman's toys may be, playability is more than just accessories. It's about how well your toys play with others. Starting off with the Justice League, and here we have Superman from Action Comics 1000. I really like how the blues on these two complement each other. Here we have Page Punchers, which I don't think is terribly appropriate for either of these Batmen. That said, he does scale better with Nightfall. And here we have the angry laser eyes version of Hush. For some other super friends, and here's the DC Essentials version of The Flash, and the DC Multiverse Rebirth. I gotta tell you, this is making me really excited for the upcoming Target exclusive one. Speaking of figures, I could use an update from McFarlane, and here's the DC Essentials version of Hal Jordan. So far, this is the only one we have, and it's way too busy. Though admittedly, Kyle Rayner doesn't look half bad. Here we have the Endless Winter Aquaman, and the Gold Label Martian Manhunter, which admittedly is still just a bit too short. As for the Bat family, and here's the Gold Label Dick Grayson. It looks great with either one of these Batmen. That said, as we await the DC Multiverse version, here's Tim Drake Robin. This is the DC Direct version, and this is the one by Mattel. Thinking of him as a teenager, and this one doesn't scale half bad with Nightfall. For Bruce's eldest adoptive son, and here's Nightwing. This is the Build-A-Batmobile Wave version, and here's the Titans Wave version. For the adult version of the second Robin, Jason Todd, and here's the Red Hood by DC Essentials. Here's the New 52 Red Hood by DC Multiverse, and Red Hood as he appeared in the Three Jokers. For the feminine touch of the Bat family, and here's Barbara Gordon. I chose the 5-pack version because I wanted to see how well the blues would match, and while it's not perfect, it is pretty close. The yellows not so much. Those match much better on Three Jokers, so it really makes me want to combine the two. Of course, we can't talk about Nightfall without bringing out As-Bats. Seeing them side by side really does make me wish that the blues and grays match better. This brings us to Nightfall Catwoman. Here's the DC Essentials version, and the version by McFarlane. Just for a few other villains though, and here's the Arkham City Penguin, the DC Designer Series Grey Capullo version of Riddler, the DC Multiverse Rebirth version of Deathstroke. In the comics, he's taller than Batman, so for Nightfall that works. And then for some Jokers, here's the DC Multiverse Rebirth, Mortal Kombat 11, and the Three Jokers Clown. But for the biggest big bad of Nightfall, and here we have Bane. I will break you. Oh, sorry, wrong guy. For a relative scale comparison, here are our Batman with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here they are with Stealth Iron Man. For those interested in head swaps, I've already done Hush Batman head swaps in my standalone video. As for Nightfall, there are just way too many combinations to include here, so that'll be getting its own video. Not only is Hush more stacked in the accessory department, but one of those accessories is very story specific, and therein kinda lies the tragedy. quantity. Knightfall might come with less, but at least he can use both fists against any foe. More importantly, he just plain scales better. For playability, this round goes to Knightfall. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. Both figures retail for between $20 to $23, but they are sold out everywhere. If you didn't pre-order them, your only hopes now are an online restock, finding them in stores, or going to the aftermarket. And you know what? I totally get it. These are two of Batman's most iconic designs, and McFarlane absolutely nailed them. I love both of these figures, and there's no way that I could choose between them. For price, this round is a draw, meaning that this battle is a tie. Gun to my head, if I found both in a store but could only put one in my shopping cart, I think it would be Hush. But which one do you prefer? And as for which Knightfall era Batman is the best, that's a conversation for another day. If you like this video, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.